Okay, we're back on looking for the leak on this 2002 BMW. I think this is the third video. So we're lucky that we can get right to the back of the expansion valve. And if you could look right where I'm going right there, you can actually see the expansion valve. Can you see that? I'll try to focus. Boom. Right there. That is the expansion valve. You can see the top, the bulb up there. You can see my tip. So I'm lucky enough that I could get right to the seals where you usually this is buried under the dash and you can't get to them at all. So there's nothing coming from the actual expansion valve or the seals around it. So anything that I'm probably picking up is coming from the dash. Nothing's coming up. Okay, so let's go back here again. We're gonna, oops, that was a bump. Yeah, they don't like to be bumped. So let's go here. I went underneath and back, and this is just an easy one for me to show you. Let's see if I could go on and off. Now, it picked up this leak twice before on my other video, and prior to this, me making this third video right here, but now it's not doing it. You could see I have the fan on low. Now I ran this vehicle for a few minutes, and right away, this would jump up. So this is one, possibly I have one of those things. The leak is not constant, but when it leaks, it loses its entire charge. So a few days ago, we went to the other shop. Now this shop does their own air conditioning too. So they did the dye, the UV check, funky leak detector, cheap dye, cheap UV light. So he took it to the other shop, and I told the story, I think in the first video. They did the exact same thing, said it was the condenser. Next day, it's empty. And this is when I hooked up to it, it had 0 PSI in it. So when it does leak, it loses the entire charge. It just doesn't lose a little bit and then stop. It literally lost it down to 0 PSI. So I am looking for one of those leaks that when it leaks and opens up, it totally releases the entire charge. It could not be leaking right now because I just drove it or rode it for a few minutes, turned it on, used it. The leak stops because of a pressure temperature that actually seals the leak. And then when it hits probably a resting point after being turned off for some times, it opens back up. Like my first video or second video, I shown you the big leak that's down here. Now I can't pick up the big leak that's down here. I'm in super mode, and remember, it went off really easy. And right now I'm in super mode and I picked nothing up. But because they had at least some dye in there that was cheap, I can easily pick it up with my light, which you could see my spilt stuff there right now. I didn't like their shit, their dye they had. But you can see the dye really easy with this light, and the other two shops with their UV lights, they could not see that dye. So that tells you, in this business, you cannot be cheap. You have to buy good equipment, and you have to know what good equipment is. And often it won't be sold on your Snap-on or Mack truck or Macco, and it might not be sold inside your local tool house. You got to research. All right, so I'm going to cut off here, and I think there's no more for me to find because I already pinpointed this was a large leak, and I could see the UV dye everywhere from previous. And I'm gonna see if I can condemn, because 3 times I picked up a sniff of refrigerant coming out of the dash. But before I go to the dash one, because that's like 7.5 hours on this Beamer, if it's a first time guy, this might be 12 hours, 7.5, 12 hours, something like that, to get to that evaporator. All right, let's see if I find any more.